Hey, what's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to review Blue Fairy Godmother from the Pinocchio series. Blue Fairy Godmother is one of the new Tsums that came out this month in the month of July alongside of Infernal Magnificent Dragon as well as Star Mickey. Her drop rates it's going to be identical as Infernal Magnificent Dragon. It's going to be at 30% compared to the 40% of Star Mickey. The ability description for Blue Fairy Godmother is magical bubble appears even with 3 chains for a short time. So essentially, you're going to be able to make bubbles even if you only make a chain of 3. Normally, you would need to make a chain of 7 in order for a bubble to be made. These bubbles are a little bit different, which I'll go over in just a little bit. Alright, now let's get into the stats. In order for you to activate Blue Fairy Godmother's ability, you will need to clear a total of 22 copies of her off the screen. Her minimum score is 50 with a maximum score of 1,275. So when it comes to scoring, Blue Fairy Godmother is actually really good for score. Especially if you could get her to level 50, she's going to be very efficient and effective to get a high score. And if you would like to get her to skill level 6, you will need to get a total of 36 copies of her from the premium box. It is lucky time right now, so if you want to level her up, now's your chance. And by the way, if you guys are enjoying this type of content where I review Tsums and do monthly leaks, also show you what the selection box and pickup capsule will look like for the month, then definitely don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It will really help me out a lot. Alright, so let's get into the skill chart. So every single time you level up Blue Fairy Godmother, 2 things changes. The first is the skill range, and the second is the ability time. Essentially, how long is that ability going to last? So let me cover the skill range first because I had to really figure out what that really meant. So the skill range is in reference to how thick or how big that clear area is going to be every single time you burst a bubble. When you burst that blue bubble, it's going to cause a chain reaction, and if the blue bubble is touching another blue bubble, then that is going to cause that chain reaction to occur. The higher the skill range, the range of that connection is going to increase. So meaning that even if the blue bubbles weren't touching each other, they're going to cause it to explode as well. So think of it as like a burst that's going to cause surrounding bursts to take place, but the higher the skill level, the distance will increase and causing that chain reaction. And ability time is pretty straightforward. Essentially, it's like how long is that ability going to last? The higher the skill level, the longer the ability is going to last. So let me show you guys a side-by-side comparison of all 3 of these skill levels. And at the same time, I'm going to show you what the strategy is to using Blue Fairy Godmother. The strategy is going to be different between skill level 1, 2, and 3 versus skill level 4, 5, and 6. So in this video, I'll specifically only share the strategy with you for skill level 1, 2, and 3. But if you have Blue Fairy Godmother at the higher skill level, then check out the higher skill level video. Okay, so the difference here between all 3 of these skill level is a skill range. First of all, it's extra small for the skill level 1. Small for skill level 2, and for skill level 3 it's going to be medium. And every single time you level up Blue Fairy Godmother, the ability time is going to last an additional 0.4 seconds, so it's not going to be very noticeable. For skill level 1, the ability time is going to last 5 seconds, skill level 2 is 5.4, skill level 3 is 5.8. So these fraction of an increase, you won't be able to feel them, but they do make a difference. So for these lower skill level, the first thing you want to focus on is trying to clear the entire screen. And to do this for skill level 1 especially, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you're not going to have enough blue bubbles in that area. So what you want to do is find out where the gaps are and try to create chains in those gaps so that way you can make one big burst. These 3 game demonstration doesn't necessarily do it justice either because I just kept making blue bubbles. What you should do is once you connect the chains or that there's less of a gap and you could burst a majority of the screen, go ahead and activate these blue bubbles. What I did here for these game demonstrations was I kept making these blue bubbles until the fever time was over, or not fever time, but the ability time was over. That's not very efficient. So you should always try to aim to make as big of a chain as possible and burst them, and then continue to make these blue bubbles to get back into ability time. And the next thing is try to make a long chain, and by long chain I mean 7 or more. That's considered long. The bubble size are going to be different. So if you look at skill level 3 bottom right hand corner, you'll see that bubble is a little bit bigger compared to the other ones, and that was because I was able to make a long chain there. These long chains or these bigger bubbles from the long chain will burst a bigger amount of Tsums, or the range is going to be slightly bigger. So having one of those bigger bubbles on the screen is going to cause those chain reactions to go bigger and wider. I would recommend you guys to burst those big bubbles right away because they do help with getting you into fever time and charging up the ability as well. So what I want to show you guys is a side-by-side comparison of the abilities activated at the same time. I'm also going to walk you through what I'm thinking as the ability is happening. So here it is in slow motion. The first thing I want to call out is this. So which Tsums turns into blue bubbles? Well, they're completely random, but what happens is that the game will pick one particular Tsum and turn those all into small blue bubbles. So it's completely random, you can't control it. So now, once those blue bubbles are created, what you should be thinking about is where are the gaps, especially for these lower skill level. Again, it's going to change at the higher skill level. So for skill level 1, 2, and 3, you want to think about where the gaps are. Because keep in mind, you're not going to be able to cause that chain reaction unless they're touching each other. Now, if you already have a Tsum that, or if you have a pocket of Tsums that you know that's going to burst because they're touching each other, go ahead and burst them. Kind of like what you just saw there at skill level 1 and for skill level 2. For skill level 3, I had to continue to build up the chains to make sure that a big enough pocket was created so when I burst them, I would get a decent sized chain. And after you make that initial burst, you should always strive to continue to make long chains because you're still going to be in fever time. And that's another thing. Keep an eye out on the top portion of the screen. That's how you're going to know if you're still in fever time or not. And in these lower skill level, you should strive to have 2 rounds of bursting. So the first round should come from right after you activate the ability. You might need to take a couple of seconds to connect a couple of small chains so that way you have that chain reaction. And then after that first chain reaction, you should strive to continue to make as many blue bubbles as possible. And then after the ability time ends, that's when you want to burst those blue bubbles to hope to get back into fever time or get back into ability time. So let me walk you through that one more time in slow motion and then we could really understand what's going on. So for this portion, let's focus on skill level 1 because I think a lot of you have this Tsum at skill level 1. So right after the ability is activated, the blue bubbles, focus on where the blue bubbles are and figure out if you want to burst it right away. Here, since there is a bunch of Tsums or the blue bubbles in the center area, go ahead and just click on the ones in the center. You'll notice that the chain reaction couldn't connect the ones on the left and the right, but that's okay. Now I'm seeing that there's a lot of blue fairies in the center area. I'm going to make that big bubble right there and create an extra bubble. So keep doing that, and that's another thing that I forgot to mention is try to clear blue fairies if you can. And if you see them already there, go ahead and just connect all of them. So now that I have the fever time or the ability time ended there, I could at this point go ahead and burst those blue bubbles and try to get back into ability time, which I think does happen here. If not, after bursting this second portion of the blue bubble, that will put me over the edge to now having ability time again. So essentially, I just want to continue this process over and over again. And you should be able to stay in ability time for the entire duration of the gameplay, especially if you get Blue Fairy Godmother to skill level 6. So it does take a lot of thinking when you're playing Blue Fairy Godmother. So if you want to just casually play and not think about the gameplay, then this is not the Tsum for you. But she is the best coin earner between Star Mickey, Infernal Magnificent Dragon, and Blue Fairy Godmother. She is going to be the best one for coins. So let me show you the results for these 3 gameplays. And one thing I want to remind you guys is that these were my first attempts at these particular skill level, so I had no practice and the strategy wasn't necessarily perfect either. But for skill level 1, I ended up with 1,223 coins. Skill level 2, I ended up with 1,338. Skill level 3, I got 1,585. So from a coin earning perspective, nothing too amazing, but honestly, if you use the right strategy and play the right way, you could probably get 600 to 700 more in all of these game demonstrations because I didn't necessarily use the perfect strategy for all 3 of these. With a little bit more practice, I figured that out later, but that's what you should do. Follow my commentary and not exactly what I did in these game demonstrations. From a scoring perspective, not that great. I got 3.8 for skill level 1, skill level 2 4.3, and 5.4 for skill level 3. So not great for score, but pretty good for coins. If you are looking for a good coin earner for this particular month, I would say save your coins for the selection box for Rugby Mickey. But if you want a new Tsum that's fun to play with, then Blue Fairy Godmother is the best one. Alright guys, so that's my review for Blue Fairy Godmother at skill level 1, 2, and 3. I hope that you guys found this video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you guys would like to see more Tsum Tsum content just like this, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching.